Not only is Dennis Schroder the point guard that the Sacramento Kings so desperately need, he may also be the leader they've been looking for. And that leadership was developed over Dennis's time with the German international team. On today's show, Andre Voigt, who covers Germany basketball. He was there for the entire Eurobasket title run, there for the entire Germany World Cup run. He joins me to tell us how Dennis Schroder has developed into one of the top two best German players of all time. It's right here for you on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all off season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And I, like many of you, got to enjoy Dennis Schroder's incredible Eurobasket run with Team Germany. They went undefeated earlier this week, defeating Turkey and Alperen Şengün in the final to win the Eurobasket tournament, giving us a little more excitement about Schroder coming into training camp, which starts in a couple of weeks. And while myself and fellow Locked On host Philip Rossman-Reich of the Locked On Magic podcast, who of course covers Franz Wagner very, very closely, while we had a good time earlier this week breaking down the Team Germany international run and how Dennis and Franz played from watching on our TV screens from hundreds of thousands of miles away, why not speak to someone who was there, who's been there, and who has covered Dennis Schroder's rise from Dirk Nowitzki's replacement as the leader in Germany to now the guy that has captained two straight titles for Germany and won the Eurobasket MVP. I'm very, very excited for you to listen to this conversation. Andre is going to provide some really interesting perspective on how Dennis has developed as a leader and how the Sacramento Kings can properly apply him to what they try to do to maximize him. And he'll also share with us just the growth of the game of basketball in Germany and give us an idea of how big basketball is in Germany. I really enjoyed this conversation as a basketball nerd. This was a major treat for me. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. The German national team has been on a pretty sensational run over the last handful of years, from winning in the World Cup to now the reigning Eurobasket champs. And someone who has been there through both runs covering German basketball is Andre Voigt from the Got Next podcast and Got Next magazine. And we have the absolute treasure and treat of having Andre join us here on the Locked On Kings podcast to give us a little more insight on Dennis Schroder and how he brought Germany, or how he helped Germany get to those couple of titles. Andre, it's a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for being willing to do this. I hope you had fun during that Eurobasket run. It was pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, it was, Matt, and thanks for having me. Yeah, it was great. I saw basically all the German men's national teams that actually won a medal. 93 just as a fan for one game, and after that, the third place in the World Championships 2002 Indianapolis with Dirk. Obviously, Nowitzki was there for the whole 2 weeks. Then the silver for the Eurobasket 2005. Saw all the games there, and now it's just another wild ride with a totally different team.
Well, there's plenty of NBA talent that's on that German national team, and we could argue whether or not, like, Franz Wagner is the star, of course, from the Orlando Magic, but the Sacramento Kings just this offseason signed Dennis Schroder to a multi-year deal, and he's kind of taken over leadership and captainship of Team Germany since Dirk kind of passed that torch. What can you tell us about the leader, the captain that Dennis Schroder is? Not necessarily the star, although he did win the Eurobasket MVP, but how has Dennis stepped up over these recent years to captain this team towards all these titles that they're winning?
Oh man, he's come a long way. because early on in his career, I mean, he's always been a nonconformist, and I guess he still is. He's doing things his way. He walks to the beat of his own drum. But early in his career, he was kind of a diva, I'd say. I wanted to have his people there. I wanted to have a certain standards. And quite honestly, German basketball wasn't ready for that. They weren't used to dealing with NBA players who came in with a certain expectation of how things was going to be run. With Dirk, obviously, we had one of the greatest players of all time for a long time playing for the national team, but he was just super cool to room with another player. He never really said anything about, we need to improve this, or I need to have, I don't know, business class flights or whatever. And then Dennis came in and he kind of changed all of that around. And in the first couple of years, the federation was kind of miffed, I'd say. I know he rubbed a couple of people the wrong way, even players the wrong way, but he changed. And the one thing he brought to the national team is the C word. It's commitment, because it used to be that the best players might not have been playing all that much. Like, I don't know if you remember Detlef Schrempf. He used to play for the Sonics and the Pacers.
Mm-hmm.
He played in '92 for the Olympic team. Obviously, it was a dream team summer. But then '93, when Germany won the Eurobasket, he didn't play because he felt like, well, he had to concentrate on his NBA career, whatever. And over the years, that happened a lot of times where we had certain players, even EuroLeague players or NBA players, who didn't commit to play for the national team. And Dennis actually changed that around because he expected everybody to play. And he said, well, I'm going to be the first one to commit. I'm going to be there every summer. I'm going to be there even if I can't play, because prior to the Olympics in Tokyo, the COVID Olympics, he couldn't play because he was still a free agent. And he was still there. He was still there at the qualifying tournament, sacrificing his summer just to cheer on the team. And with him as a leader, with him, going ahead and being available every summer, nobody really had an excuse not to do it. And then obviously we got a lot of younger players like Franz and Moritz Wagner, Tristan da Silva also with Orlando Magic, obviously, and some other guys who play in EuroLeague, and they committed. And Daniel Theis, who played on youth teams about 20 minutes from where I live in Braunschweig, he committed. Obviously, he was an NBA player back then. And we had incredible talent. Everybody wanted to play. And now we have two of the biggest medals German basketball has ever won. And we won it, well, not back to back, because in the Olympics we finished fourth, but it's just an incredible run for German basketball. And you can all trace it back to Dennis committing to the team.
There's at least in America, there's always a debate because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, right? It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. And it's how much of your European and international career do you include in their Hall of Fame resume? And Dennis Schroder has significantly bounced around the NBA, played for 3 different teams in the NBA last season. And when the Kings signed him to a multi-year deal, he said in a press conference earlier this summer, like, he was happy to find a home and find some of that longevity that he's been lacking. And then, of course, he goes and wins the Eurobasket with Germany. But how would you describe, I guess, the international resume of Dennis Schroder, and where does he fall on the list along with Dirk of some of the greatest German basketball players ever to play the game?
I'd say if you look at our German history in basketball, right now he's a clear-cut number 2. I mean, you can argue because Detlef Schrempf obviously was an all-star and played in the finals, but I mean, if you include the international side of the FIBA side of things, and there's just no disputing that he's a clear-cut number 2 behind Dirk. But it remains to be seen how Franz is gonna perform the next couple of years. Obviously, he has a lot of time left, but right now he's obviously number 2. As far as the Hall of Fame is concerned, it's kind of baffling, because I don't really know what is the criteria to be included in the Basketball Hall of Fame as far as the international wing is concerned. There are some players on there who never played in the NBA, who obviously were very instrumental for the basketball success in their respective countries, like Sergei Belov, a Russian or Soviet Union player back in the day. He's in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, they won gold medals. But I really don't know if it's just because of what they did in certain FIBA tournaments, or if the guys who are just purely international players, if they are selected more on the merits of being like their country's biggest basketball stars, or like really pioneers who brought the game to a different level in that respective country. I mean, obviously, if we go and look at the medals Dennis won, he should be in there. But I'm really not sure of the criteria the committee will use, because it's not really. If you look at the list of all the internationals who are in there, who never played in the NBA, it's not clear to me how they select them. But obviously, as a German, I would like for him to be the second German inducted.
Well, he's also had a long and in many ways successful NBA career. I mean, he's had 12 seasons in the league, which if you can stay in the league that long, you're obviously doing something right. And selfishly, Andre, I'm watching Eurobasket and enjoying it for what it is, but also I'm trying to watch Dennis closely and say, okay, what can I take from this and apply to the Sacramento Kings? And what really jumped off the page to me is over the semifinal game and the championship game, you see the assist numbers skyrocket for him. I believe he had 12 assists in both of those games. Now, Dennis, of course, has an incredible ability to score the basketball. He ended up putting the final touches on the game with a couple of clutch buckets that he hit at the end there to beat Turkey. But what can you tell me about Dennis Schroder, the playmaker at this point in his career? Because he's joining a Sacramento Kings team that already has a lot of talent from DeMar DeRozan to Zach LaVine. And both of those guys need a playmaking point guard in order to maximize their ability. So I think the Kings are looking at Dennis as, of course, a scoring option, but what they need from him first and foremost is a guy that's going to run the team, run the offense, and create for others.
Yeah, I think during his NBA career, obviously he played for a lot of different teams, teams who knew how to use him, and some teams who didn't. If you remember his time with the Lakers, they kind of stuck him in the corner and had LeBron handle the ball, and he's just not that kind of guy. He comes with a certain amount of speed. I mean, obviously in FIBA basketball, he's, I guess, maybe the fastest player that we had at the Eurobasket, but just a unique skill in FIBA. It's not that unique if you look at the NBA, because there are guards a dime a dozen who are as fast as him, but still, he can run the pick and roll. He can penetrate. He has a pretty good eye, passing the ball to the corner. He has these change of directions, which made it fairly easy for him to get to the basket, and he can finish there as well. But you need a certain team around him, I think, in the NBA. You need shooters. Obviously, DeMar DeRozan not really a three-point threat, so it's going to be up to the coaches to see how they navigate that. But if you put him in a situation where he can handle the ball, where he is a primary playmaker out of the pick and roll, when you can utilize his speed, when you let him make decisions in transition, I think he can be a great player in the NBA. Maybe not an all-star, but somebody, and we saw that, during his career, who can challenge for the sixth man of the year award if he's not starting, but he can also be a very, very solid starter. It gives you, I don't know, like 16-8 should be no problem for him if the team is the right team for him. But looking at the Kings as they are situated right now, I think, he should definitely help. And I guess you guys will be playing fast next year. So it should be great for him. The thing is with the German team, especially in the finals, you saw in the first half what Turkey did. They pulled the defender of Isaac Bonga, who ended up to be maybe the most important player in that game, but they pulled him off all night and left him open in the corner. And obviously to clog up the driving lanes that were there for Dennis. But Dennis, smartly decided, all right, I don't have my lanes. I'm going to find different ways, for us to win. And he did. And when these lanes opened up in the second half, he drove to the basket, he got to his spots. So he's really matured in that way, in that aspect as well. So, you can be glad that you have this point guard.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money exists. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on either your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is there for you. Monarch does all the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I, believe it or not, am not a financial expert. When it comes to investments and my financial portfolio, I have little to no idea what I am doing. Monarch Money has been a game changer, a lifesaver for me in so many ways, with maximizing investments, increasing my savings rate, easily reviewing finances with your partner. If you have a joint bank account, you have separate bank accounts, or getting help from a financial advisor, keeping a clear view of your financial health week to week, day to day, or long term. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. You're the third person that I've heard bring up the pick and roll specifically with Dennis, and he's got a teammate now and another player with European lineage in Domantas Sabonis, who's one of the best centers in the league, second to probably Nikola Jokic, well, definitely second to Nikola Jokic in terms of playmaking and being able to pass himself and run the offense through him. But I'm fascinated about how that pick and roll can work between Dennis Schroder and Domantas Sabonis. What do you, just if you're thinking about that pairing or projecting going forward, how do you feel that duo can work together?
I think it all depends on Dennis's three-point shot, because while it has improved the last couple of years, he still goes through these stretches where it just doesn't fall, and then obviously it becomes a problem when he runs a pick and roll with Domantas Sabonis, because obviously he's not the greatest shooter. I mean, last year he took some strides there. Early in his career, he shot a little more, but if Dennis' shot is working, if Domantas has a certain kind of accuracy from behind the arc, I think they can really, feed off each other with the handoffs, have these actions where Dennis just comes up from the baseline, Sabonis can hand it off or go himself. I think you can actually develop really efficient offense around that. But like I said, Dennis has to hit his threes, and well, he did it at Eurobasket, so let's hope he does it for the Kings as well.
In America, we hold tight to the NBA being the greatest basketball league in the world, but here you see European talent coming over and just dominating the league, right? Winning MVP awards from Luka to Giannis to Jokic to Joel Embiid, right? It's been incredible to watch, and in Sacramento, we're very used to the European game because we were trailblazers of that in a sense with Peja and with Vlade and Hedo Turkoglu and all of them back in the day. But I believe that NBA teams can and should learn a lot from watching international basketball. If the Kings, and I'm sure they were paying close attention to the Team Germany run and Dennis Schroder, I know Kings owner Vivek Ranadive went out to watch him a couple of times. What do you think the Sacramento Kings should learn from how Team Germany has played basketball? And I mean, they're winning titles, so they're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Doug Christie was there as well in Tampere, because like the group phase was played in Finland, and then the main part of it was played in Latvia, in Riga. Yeah, I mean, one thing, the new national coach Alex Mumbrú, who used to be a Spanish international, played with Pau Gasol back in the day, won a lot of titles. He brought one new aspect to the German game that was a transition game, because when we won the World Championship under Gordon Herbert, former national team coach, it was, I wouldn't say it was methodical. It was a 5-out offense, with 5 players who could all handle the ball, shoot, guard different positions, and being able to drive the ball, which proved to be, very tough to defend, even for Team USA that year. But like I said, it was kind of methodical. It didn't really push the ball. But now with Mumbrú at the helm, especially with Franz Wagner, who's an incredible transition weapon to have, it was just basically unstoppable for a lot of teams, because came out of a pretty aggressive defensive set, tried to push the ball up to Wagner or Isaac Bonga, and they just attacked. And these guys are like 6'8", 6 and 6'9", and they just steamroll defense at times. In the half court, I mean, the thing is with international basketball, you don't really have that much time to implement a very diverse offensive system. So most of the teams just use basic stuff, but they are, so used to each other that they can read situations really well. But it's not super complicated. But Germany, even though they had a new coach who came in this summer, basically to work with all the players, because he came in last year, but during qualification he couldn't really use NBA or EuroLeague players. But he came in and he implemented like an offensive system that was pretty vast. I mean, there weren't a lot of plays, but obviously it was the transition attack. Then they had stuff they developed out of Iverson cuts. Then they had screen-to-screener actions, and there was not really another country that was so versatile on offense. They could just, tap into so many different areas. But I'm not sure if the NBA or the Kings can learn anything from that. I mean, obviously everybody is better when you have 5 players on the court who can handle and shoot and drive the ball. But it's tough to get these players. And in Germany, we are very fortunate because we had some very, very important reforms in youth basketball about 20 years ago, where we are reaping the benefits of these reforms if we, develop these kind of players. And obviously with the NBA, they can't really develop young players. If you develop them, they are already 19, 20 years old, or in the G League or the rookies coming in. So maybe just transition attack, just attack early. Don't let the defense set. Have Dennis at the helm. Let him push the ball. It's basically the only thing I could tell Doug Christie right now.
Well, Andre, the Sacramento Kings were 1 pick away from taking Franz Wagner, and I have pretty good indication that he was going to be the selection, and then the Orlando Magic snatched him away right before. I was devastated personally. I loved Franz Wagner, wanted him on the Sacramento Kings, but we'll absolutely be happy and take Dennis Schroder. You talked about kind of Schroder's being a diva, like the NBA personality coming over, and the Sacramento Kings over the last handful of years, Andre, have kind of been known as the nice team. They're the nice guys. It's been a wonderful locker room to be around. Certainly they're competitive, but they lacked kind of that. A good example is in the playoffs, Domantas Sabonis was stomped on by Draymond Green.
Yeah.
And nobody did anything about it. No one said anything. No one got in his face. Nobody. And I see these clips, and I've watched Dennis Schroder for years, and I know he's a guy that'll say something. He's a guy. He's got his famous little celebration behind LeBron with the ice in his veins. He brings kind of this personality and this energy, which is one of the reasons why I think the Sacramento Kings were so drawn to him. What can you say about the competitiveness of Dennis Schroder and his willingness to be that kind of leader by example? Not someone who's going to necessarily scream and yell at people. I don't think the Kings are looking for that, but someone who will light a fire at times when needed.
I mean, he wants to win. I mean, that's what it comes down to. If you remember what he did for Brooklyn last year, I mean, they just got they just became too good. They wanted to tank, and then he just came out there and said, well, no, I'm not here to lose these games. You pay me to play basketball, and we're going to play the best basketball we can play. And then they started winning, and then they had to chip him out. So yeah, I mean, whenever he steps on this court, he wants to win. Obviously, there's also other stuff involved, like money for everybody. It's about the money in the NBA, but he wants to win, and that's why the Detroit Pistons were glad to poach him from the Utah Jazz, after the trade from Golden State to Utah, and he showed in the playoffs, how important he could be for a young team like the Detroit Pistons as well. So, I think you're going to have a leader there who's going to set a standard just like he does for the German national team. And then it's just a matter of, is everybody going to follow? Because obviously he's not the most prominent player on the Kings next year. There's other people who have been all-stars. But I think the other Kings would be, wise to take Dennis's lead and to kind of, tap into his intensity and the standards he sets. And then I think good things going to come out of it.
This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time that you had an urgent need, like a plumber or some sort of service provider. If the first company or person that you called didn't answer, did you wait for them to call you back? No, probably not. You moved on because there's urgency. You needed to get that taken care of. That's why your business needs Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or on your computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single application. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after hours calls, answering common questions, and capturing leads, so you never miss a customer no matter what time of day it is. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Kings listeners 20% off of your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, no problem. OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Andre, I got a couple of messages after the Eurobasket final. Of course, we were focusing on Dennis Schroder, but a couple of Kings fans going, who's this Isaac Bonga guy? And is he available? Should the Sacramento Kings take a chance on him? And just looking at his history, I mean, he hasn't been a part of the NBA since the 21-22 season when he was with Toronto. But I mean, is he someone that you think has an opportunity to get back into the league? And maybe not the Sacramento Kings, but one of these 30 NBA teams should be keeping an eye on him to bring him in, because he was sensational a number of times during the tournament, but especially during that final.
Yeah, he actually got voted best defender of Eurobasket in the end. And actually, I've been saying this for the last 3 or 4 years. And people always ask me, I got this Q&A podcast I do every Friday. And when he left the NBA, people were saying, well, is he going to come back? Is there a way for him to come back in the NBA? And I always said, well, he played NBA defense while he was with the Lakers and later on after he got traded. The knock on him was always his three-point shot. He came over as a very young player. He actually played point guard in the youth national teams from Germany. And, I think it was kind of miscast as this ball handling forward who could, play defense and shoot threes. And while his ball handling is still there, he can still lead the break, and he's made strides in that regard and on the senior level. I think the shot just wasn't there. And he was not, early on in his career, he was not the kind of guy who could run the pick and roll and break a defense down. That wasn't him. But now his shot has come around. He's played for Partizan Belgrade the last 2 years, I think. I think he hit 41% of his threes in EuroLeague, with the three being, I think it's 3 feet closer to the basket, but that shouldn't be a problem. I think his shot should translate to the NBA. So I always said, well, if he gets his three, or if he hits 36%, he's going to be back in the NBA, because, all the teams are looking for value in the EuroLeague. And in the EuroLeague, a guy like him, I would estimate he earns about 1.5 million euros, which is, I think, 1.8 million dollars. So it's still a lot less than the league minimum. Thing is, his team gave him, in this contract he had a 1-on-1 contract. They gave him an NBA out, but this NBA out, they shrewdly let it expire before Eurobasket. So he will be locked into Partizan next year. But I would wager a lot of money if I would do sports betting that he will be on an NBA roster next year.
Sacramento has a common misconception around the NBA is this kind of small town, the cow town, the small market type thing. And Sacramentans embrace it, right? I grew up in a community that absolutely loves basketball. There's an almost obsession with basketball here in Sacramento. The love for this team, despite the fact that they've struggled to find success really over the last 20 years, is pretty incredible. It's what makes Sacramento Kings basketball so special. And I've learned so much and seen so much about how the game has grown internationally and how different communities internationally love the game. We learned a lot with Vivek Ranadive purchasing the team about how big the game of basketball was in India. And I'm not going to waste this opportunity to ask you, how big is the game of basketball in Germany? How locked into, whether it's the NBA or EuroLeague, Eurobasket, World Cup, whatever, how important is basketball to the culture in Germany?
I think a pretty good comparison is the way the sports landscape in the States is set up. You obviously have the NFL, then there's a pretty big gap, and then it's college football, and then maybe the NBA.
Sure, yeah.
In Germany, is basically the Fußball Bundesliga, so the soccer Bundesliga. It's like our soccer NBA. Then obviously you have like the Soccer Champions League. And then it's just a huge gap. And then number 2, I think, would be basketball right now. The thing is, basketball is very, very splintered in Germany. We have the German Bundesliga, which is like our first league, which is not really all that relevant, I must say, because the best German players play in the NBA or in the EuroLeague. Obviously, we have like one EuroLeague club in the Bundesliga, which is Bayern München. They had 5 of the European champions on their roster. We'll have them next year. So this is a great team. They make strides in the EuroLeague as well. But pretty much all the other teams in the Bundesliga are very, very irrelevant. We have Alba Berlin, which is a great club with a great grassroots system. They've been developing a lot of national team players over the years. But most of the teams are struggling. The games are attended by, around about 3,500, 4,000 people. With Munich and Berlin, it's bigger. It can go up to 10,000, 12,000 people. But it's a pretty niche product, the Bundesliga. Then we obviously have the EuroLeague, which is the second best league in the world. And I would argue, if you look at the NBA regular season, at times the EuroLeague is the best team, the best league in the world, because obviously the NBA regular season, a Tuesday night in Charlotte, is not going to stack up to a game in Belgrade.
I agree.
So it's tough. I guess most basketball fans in Germany are actually watching the NBA via League Pass. I used to commentate games for the Zone, which was a streaming service that showed the NBA as well. So there's a pretty big following there. But the one team that actually captures the imagination is the national team. This year we had like 2. Well, not really station. We had one TV station broadcasting the German games, and then we had one streaming service broadcasting the German games and all the other games of Eurobasket. And obviously for streaming service, it's always kind of tough to get ratings. But for the TV station, we got the ratings. And it started out for the first couple of games, it was under 1 million people were watching like the games from Tampere. Germany played some pretty bad hours as well. They played at 11 o'clock in the morning, one game. But it rose. It rose all the way up to 8 million people. And if you know that, in Germany, you have 80 million people as a whole. So every 10th German was watching the final. So that's great, But it's always just a national team. And they're going to, be gone. Now after the tournament, there's going to be a boom. I guess it's because we had the same thing in 23 or in 2002 and in 93. Whenever the national team does well, we have young people watching that and then coming into the clubs wanting to play basketball a couple of weeks later. So that's going to come. But if you want to watch Dennis play, if you want to watch Franz play, you're going to have League Pass, because otherwise you can't really watch them play. If you have a Bundesliga club in your city, you just want to go there. Obviously, you see pretty good basketball. You're not going to see the national team players, because the only ones in the Bundesliga play with Bayern Munich, and the others are in the NBA or in the EuroLeague, just like I said. So it's tough. It's getting better. There's a rabid fan base, but it will never surpass or come close to soccer over here. But it's okay. Like I said, it's growing. We have more people playing basketball than ever before. And I always say that, to me, that is the most valuable currency we have is young people playing basketball, because that ensures that obviously we're going to have more kids, come in, and obviously more talent come in, but we also, we broaden the base. We have people who know the game. In the States, everybody knows the rules of basketball. Over here, if you watch soccer all the time, there's only 2 rules you need to know in soccer, and it's offsides and it's handball. And both are really, really controversial at times. So people just get riled up. But if you look at a basketball game, you don't know what the referee has been calling. It's tough if you never played it. So the more people are playing, the better. And maybe we're going to sit here again in 20 years and I'm going to tell you something different. But right now, we're number 2. Team handball is close, same as ice hockey. But basketball is growing, and that's all we can ask for, actually.
I have a colleague that is as diehard of a Dortmund fan as it gets from the States. So I always have to see him wearing his yellow kit around town. Well, Andre, Do we have to fight for your support between the Sacramento Kings and the Orlando Magic? I know you got some more German guys in Orlando than you do in Sacramento with Dennis, but can we count on some Kings coverage and some Kings support from you? And hey, man, come on down to Sacramento. You're more than welcome at a game in Sacramento if you can ever make the trip.
Actually, I've never been to Sacramento. I've been to the Warriors for a couple of the NBA finals. And yeah, I'm going to watch more Kings games this year than I've ever have. Yeah, although, I would have watched a lot more of you actually touched on it, of the Peja, Vlade Divac, Chris Webber teams. But back then we didn't have League Pass over here. But yeah, I'm going to watch the Kings.
Well, brace yourself. It's an experience. It can be fun. But you have to experience it in person because it might get rough at times over broadcast television. But Andre, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this phenomenal work covering Eurobasket. Team Germany is going to be a superpower in basketball, I think, for a long time. And next is what? Next is it Olympics now? Is the next?
No. It's well, next summer it's just going to be the qualification for the World Cup. The World Cup's going to be in 27 in Qatar. So
there you go. And then we're going to have the Olympics eventually in LA, right? So we'll get the
28. Yeah.
So we'll get the fun of that too, with hopefully Dennis Schroder and Franz Wagner still putting on a show for Team Germany. Andre, it's an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thanks for doing this, and hopefully we get the chance to chat again very soon.